Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli, certified nutrition coach, consultant, counselor, call me whatever you would like. On this episode, I am addressing balance and balance throughout life. Could be moderation, it could be small doses, baby steps, going after things that don't need extremism, removing deprivation and extremism throughout life. Now, I'm not qualified on most of these to give you any advice. I can only give you my experiences, my opinions. They might differ very much so from what you think. Balance itself, it's kind of a happy medium, like I'd said, between deprivation and extremism. It's kind of where you want to be in that area of not too far to any edge. I think that if you go too far either way with anything in life, it kind of pollutes it, it deteriorates it, it causes resentment towards it, all kinds of shit. It's pretty fucked up, really, if you think about it. If the society that we live in now, it seems as if going to an extreme is the norm, and people are just wired to outdo each other in any direction to just be seen. That's a very sick mentality. I don't think it's going to get anybody anywhere. It's not about yourself. It's about competing with everybody else. Balance is individualized, in my opinion. So that being said, I'm not an expert here on balance throughout anything. Maybe with diet, nutrition, macros, and all that, I can give you some good benefits on balance and how to balance things out as opposed to the extremes in those ends and the deprivation that comes with that. I can speak on that and feel confident. But, I'm going to talk about some other things in life here and read something else from a website I found that I really liked about balance. I've never really been a good balance person. I've always struggled with moderation. I've always just gone really hard in one direction, it seemed. And, being careful and being, it seemed like a weakness almost to not just go the whole way with everything and really go balls out and take that mentality in all different directions, whether it be super low-calorie diets, whether it be training 7 days a week in the gym, extremely meticulous macro tracking. That's just being on the health and fitness side. But again, alcohol, relationships, other human beings, money, everything of the sort. It all can use some form of balance. One of the most important ones that I'm going to talk about here that has, plagued me throughout my life and I've always struggled with a little bit, and I think we have a huge problem with here in the United States, is work-life balance, though I think it's getting better. I'll touch on that a bit and my experiences and what I think of it and what I think is best. Again, like I reiterate every time, I'm not preaching to anybody. I just come on this here and start talking about it because I have a genuine interest in it and believe that, can create some discussion. Maybe you learn something. Maybe you can tell me I'm wrong about something, and that's fair. Criticism is great too. So, like I said before, that balance is that medium somewhere in between depriving yourself and being too extreme in another direction. Balance isn't always 50-50. That's another thing we want to talk about too, is it's not necessarily half and half. It's not like that. It's not clear cut in that sense. Balance looks different for everybody as well. It's individualized. So what I consider a balance, you might think is an extreme. And what you think is an extreme, I might say, well, that's a good balance. It just depends on your mentality, your previous experiences, and just what you think of the aspect that you're talking about that you feel like needs balance. So the first one I'll get into, pretty basic, talked about it all the time here on this podcast, diet and nutrition. So where are we at with that? We have very, very extremes, polar extremes, I think, because you have two different entities. You have our societal norm, our way of eating, which is very fast-paced, cheap fast food. We don't really live in a society that values sitting down and eating something nutritious and relaxing and eating that, and in form, like sometimes Europeans might have that type of lifestyle where they appreciate their food a little more. We're more like, okay, this is just get it in my body and go, because I got to get to my next meeting. I got to go pick up my kid. I got to do this and that. And we just get so busy in our heads that we just can't stop for a minute and realize that we can actually balance this shit, because we succumb to this societal norm of just fly by the seat of your pants, and McDonald's is just there at every corner. Starbucks is there at every corner. You can get your coffee, your cake pop, and your breakfast sandwich, and then go to McDonald's and say I want a number 2 and be on your way, and that's it. And then before you know it, you're just spiraling into gluttonous ways that has been set up for you. And on the other end of that, it's the actual nutrition and the diet industry. It's the extreme diets and everything else we've talked about before. So that's where you're restricting heavily a carbohydrate. You're restricting your calories too much. And it goes to this point where you just start to resent it. And you think that's the only way. So you just naturally gravitate towards what's normal in society because, hey, that food's cheap. That food tastes good. Let's just go with that. Screw this guy that's saying I got to eat 800 calories a day. Screw this diet that wants me to eliminate all the potatoes and pasta and sweets and all that other shit I like. That's the one of the number one things that needs balance is diet around here. We need to balance our food. And whenever I even talk to clients, and they want to know, what do I eat at this restaurant? What do I get here? I don't know what to do. I always say just aim for something that looks like it's balanced. So, for instance, for me, a balanced meal is any entree in a restaurant that's got, a piece of meat like a steak or fish, and then it's got potatoes in there and then vegetables. That, to me, is a solid balance rather than, say, a bowl of pasta with no meat in it and nothing else. It's just straight carbs and sauce and cheese, and that's all it is. So to me, that's more of a balance. The same thing goes for pizza or anything that's just heavily carb based and low protein or anything of the sort. So to get something that's balanced, it would be something like a bowl from Chipotle will do it too. That can be really balanced. A poke bowl at a restaurant, they usually do a pretty good job of that. It's hit and miss, but that's sort of a good way to look at a balance with nutrition in a way. So, and you don't have to go meal by meal. You can kind of also go by, what is actually a balanced way of eating. Some will say 80. This is where 50-50 isn't a balance, because if you eat like shit 50% of the time and eat what you consider healthy 50% of the time, you're not really balancing. That shit food is going to outweigh what the healthy stuff that you're eating, provided you are aware of what is actually considered healthy and right for you and your goal. So even 80-20 can get messy with that. So what I like to say is the best balanced way to eat, it's 80-17-3 or something like that, or maybe 80-15-5, which means 80% of the time you're eating well. You kind of know what you're putting in your body. Again, this is balanced for different people, your goals and such. But 80% of the time you're eating well, you're eating right, you're hitting your protein targets, you're eating within your calorie range for what you're going for, you're balanced, you're keeping your body at maintenance or wherever your goal might be. Then let's just say 15% of the time, maybe you're eating right, but you're not tracking your food. You're kind of lenient with it, but you're getting the right amount of things in there. You're eyeballing things, that's kind of good. Maybe you have one meal that's a little more gluttonous and a little more indulgent. And then, 5% of the time, 3 to 5% of the time, just go at it, order yourself an entire pizza on a Friday night and just enjoy the hell out of it and just commit to the next day being good. To me, that's a good balance. So with diet nutrition, there you go. That's a way to do it. And again, it looks different for everyone. That's just my opinion. And then you pull that into the other entity here with this is training with lifting. Now, I used to lift 7 days a week, and that was almost too much. And you burn out. You almost tire yourself out to where you're just depleted and you're burnt. You're tearing up your muscle fibers. You're not giving yourself enough time to rest. I've been there. Sometimes it's having only one way to train. Obviously, strength training needs to be done. It's very beneficial. It's the number one form of training for most people, depending on your goal, especially. But you also can add in things like yoga, cardio, sports, swimming. Other things like that can also be incorporated as a good balance of what type of training that you do. So, even though you might be a muscle head in the gym, there's nothing wrong with spending a day, an evening in a yoga session. It might be good for you. Doing a little bit of cardio. Maybe you're not even looking to lose fat. We got to detach the whole fat loss and cardio thing because that has been a disaster for most because we believe that we need to manually burn calories. which is a total waste of time. So what you want to do is understand that that's just good for you in your insides, for your heart, and for moving around and things like that. And same thing with yoga for stretching and staying flexible and mobile. So those are a few ways to go ahead and balance out training and diet a little bit, kind of give yourself some leeway. The reason you want to even do that especially is because the main thing is staying sustainable and keeping things realistic for you so that you can keep going. You'll last longer at that 80-15-5 than you will at 100-0. You'll be able to do that for a much longer time because you're not depriving yourself. Another thing to balance is relationships with human beings. I think that we sometimes can become too obsessive with one person. Maybe it's your spouse or a friend or whatever, and you sort of just isolate yourself from everybody else, and you lose touch with everyone, and you kind of become this reliant person attached to one other, and your happiness becomes dictated by that person, and then you just sort of have to now what? And if something happens there, now what happens from there? So I've always tried to keep myself balanced out with keeping in touch with lots of friends, find my family and everything like that. Some people will cut everything off for one person, which is extremely unhealthy. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but I've seen it happen. I've seen friends. I've had a friend who had his wife basically started cutting out everyone from his life she wanted him all the time. And, he went with it. He was a very pliable brain, didn't really think for himself very much. And he ended up becoming that. And he doesn't see his family very often any longer. And it's unfortunate to see those types of things. So that's another way to balance your relationships. Spend some time. Obviously, you're going to spend most of your time with your kids and your spouse or your immediate family. But, again, the balance, it doesn't mean you spend half and half. It's again 80-15-5, something like that. 80% of the time you're with your immediate family, 15 you're with your extended, and then 5% you're with your friends. Balance it however you want for yourself and whatever you think is healthy for your mentality. That's really what it is. With children, balance kind of becomes a sacrifice. You can't necessarily put balance in front of children because you are responsible for a human life. So with my kids, I don't seek balance, and when I do, you get glimpses. You get a sitter, you get a night out, they go to school or they go to camp. You take those little things that are available for kids that are good for them, and you kind of administer the balance that way so that you're not incessantly watching a child. Some people can handle that more than others. Some are made for it. Some have a harder time. And, I've seen a lot or heard a lot of, people, women mostly, who want to be stay-at-home mothers, and they end up doing it and they lose themselves and they just lose their identity. They become very just burnt out really fast. And before you know it, they want to go out there and start, building a career or doing something different. But we can't really balance our kids in such a way as everything else because they are reliant upon us. So that's another one. I've talked about alcohol before. And alcohol is something I've stated it has no benefit. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. Like most substances, it really has no benefit. I mean, I can lean a little bit towards saying that, yes, maybe it does enhance a meal with some wine or, maybe a couple of drinks does do something for you, and that's fine. And that's exactly what it is. And I'm not going to get too down the road with alcohol, but if you quit and you start feeling deprived, instead of, hey, I don't need this anymore, then, try, I guess, if you want to try to have it again. And you'll find out whether it's for you or not. And if you can balance it or moderate it, then that's fine. But with alcohol, it is a poison, it is a toxin, it is a substance, and it can be abused. Therefore, you might have no choice but to go 0 and 100 with it, which means you don't touch it because it's a poison to you and makes you become something that you're not, and that is just dangerous for yourself and people around you. So with alcohol, it really depends on the person, where you've been, how you react to it, what it does. But overall, abstaining completely from alcohol is probably a good balance in itself. So work-life balance would be something else to talk about. And I think that's been something that we've tried to go ahead and figure out for years, is work-life balance recently, especially with technology now, that we can kind of work from anywhere. We can work from home. We've got our home offices. We got our phones. We can be in touch with anybody, get answers, get information, do things at a coffee shop, and it's kind of cool that way. I prefer that. I like what one time I read about something called ROWE, a results-only work environment. Not all jobs can be like this. Some more dynamic ones can. Obviously, if you have to be stationed somewhere at a job where you have a specific task to do, much like maybe say a cashier, you can't necessarily be results-driven. You just have to kind of keep doing your job. But I come from a sales background, which is results-driven. So for me, I just say, you know what? I don't want any hours. Just tell me what I got to do. Let me do it however I want to do it. And if it's getting done, leave me alone. If it's not getting done, then we'll talk. Tell me what I got to do. Do what you have to do for me then in that case. It's changed a lot. So, it kind of went from the Depression era parents. This is kind of how I viewed it because I've seen it in my family. Now, my grandfather was a Depression era guy. He was on the streets working at 9 years old, shining shoes and selling newspapers during in 1929, basically. And that's really messed up when you think about it. But that's the era, that's the life that he was in. And a lot of people from the Depression were in. They became very fearful, rightfully so, because they didn't have anything and they just needed to survive. They were in survival mode. They didn't care about their happiness because they couldn't, because they needed to do what they needed to do to put food on their table and a roof over their head and all that other shit. So they raised the boomers and the Gen X, pretty much, mostly the boomers. And we know the boomers have a great work ethic, in my opinion. I think they really do. And I think that the boomers, were the last great work ethic generation. I don't believe, because they were raised by the Depression era parents, that they really figured out happiness into anything. I don't think they ever went ahead and, sought out their happiness. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some that probably have and figured it out. This isn't just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. I'm generally speaking, I believe this is the majority of the boomers. They sort of, just said, you got to go to work, got to do this. I think they might have even lived in a time where, maybe you did get rewarded a little more for your work and recognized a little bit more than maybe we did down the line. I'm not 100% on that, but it feels as if it was a little bit more lucrative during those times. So with that, they got told what happened with the Depressionary parents, and then they just had, we got to work, we got a good work ethic. They made a lot of money. They made a lot of fucking money. And then, they came out and raised the millennials and then Gen Z, which is where I fall into, being born in 1983. And I think my generation, of course, we all think our generation is the best, and I'm no different. But I think that my generation, late 70s-ish to, or maybe they say late 60s through the 80s, and then a little bit beyond, I'd say there's a 30 years about of people who were born who kind of have a good idea of the balance that I think is right, where we are, have a good work ethic, but also, don't want to get taken advantage of, don't want to sacrifice our personal lives and everything else that kind of comes along with life. You don't want to just work to live, or live to work, whatever that is. But I think we have the best mindset with it. I do believe that it's possible that the generation that followed, the post-millennium generation, the I generation, they might struggle a little bit with work ethic because things have just gotten so easy, and it's so distracting. And there's so many distractions now with phones and TikTok and all kinds of other crap, that there's a device for everything, an app for everything. There's ads everywhere. There's just all kinds of noise. And I think we're seeing a lot of attention deficit disorder. I know I have a problem with that too, but I'm not saying it's just that generation. So I do think that, this work-life balance has gotten better a little bit over time here. I think that's a good thing. I think that people are recognizing that, hey, you know what, we can get this stuff done. We can do what we need to do and still have a great life with our families, our friends, and, really experience life for what it's meant to be. And work should be part of life, not our whole life. I think that's a great way to look at it, but it's got to stay balanced. It's got to just stay right. So again, work-life balance, we can go into a whole story about that. Everyone's got their own idea, again, of what work-life balance is. So if you got a boss who has a different idea of what work-life balance is than you, that's probably more than likely going to be a struggle, because If they have one idea, you have another, that's not going to gel very well. So it's important to find the right leader within a company and for your career that you can, kind of flourish and do your thing and really thrive because you like the atmosphere and the environment that you're put in. A lot of people who kind of have that old school work ethic, yeah, they'll get things done, but I think they're driving people away more than they are driving them to do good. So I'm the kind of person where if you try to like drive me and slave drive me basically and tell me, hey, do this now, and this is the time, go, that's fine and all, but it doesn't last and it doesn't motivate. It doesn't inspire. So I'm more motivated by like, hey, here's what you got to do. This is it. Go do it. It's up to you. All right. That gives me more like motivation to go ahead and get the job done right. That's just me. So, like I said, a lot of distractions with nowadays with social media, and that's another one. We haven't balanced that at all, right, in my opinion. You're on your own for that. There's nobody going to balance your social media unless you set some sort of time designation within your phone that won't let you in the apps. I don't even know if that exists, but either way, you're in control of it. So you control how much you scroll, how much you look at, who you interact with, how you interact, and then things are perceived differently. It's very bad. I think we're at the extreme end of social media right now. I think we're seeing people just using it and abusing it, and we're on it too much. We're getting ourselves just, holy shit. I honestly took about a month off of social media recently. I've deactivated my Facebook. So if you are looking for me, I no longer exist on Facebook right now, and that goes for my business page too. I'm going to start pushing it on LinkedIn a little bit more, and I do stick with my Instagram page. So, but I'll tell you, for me, it's been glorious, and I don't miss it. Obviously, there are good things to social media. I've stayed in touch with people. I found someone to actually watch my dogs locally for a very good price while I was away for a couple of days. And, it has its good. So it's just a matter of balance. Maybe I'm going too extreme to shut it all down. But in a sense, sometimes you need to just completely turn it off and then come back in. And kind of like with alcohol, maybe you can turn it off for a little while and then maybe reintroduce it as moderation. But that's a slippery slope, as is social media. The slippery slope is always there. You can always just drift back to the other extreme without any self-awareness. So I think that social media needs a break. However you want to do it the right way. Shut it down. Maybe maybe around like 5 platforms, cut it down to 2. Put your phone in a drawer for a while. I don't know. If it's not messing with your head, I mean, you may be aware or not of it, but Jesus, it's a lot. It's a lot going on at once in front of our heads, and our brains are not developed to take all that in at that level, at that excessive level, that much noise, those flashing lights and all that shit. I don't think that is where we are supposed to be at this point. I just don't believe it. Another one that I can't even talk too much is balancing your emotions out. This is better left for a therapist to speak on, but I'm just going to say, because I've been in therapy for a while and doing that sort of thing, it's been years. We don't balance our emotions. It eats us alive. Because if we don't balance our thoughts, the thoughts trigger the emotions, and then they keep feeding each other back and forth. And then if you just keep not addressing any of that, you're just going to keep letting your thoughts spiral, and it's going to hit one of those: anger, anxiety, irritability, depression. It's going to nail something, and it's going to keep going and keep driving you down until the point you're just broken. And that's what'll happen. And that's why you have to get in control and realize your thoughts aren't even real most of the time, and they're just thoughts. But the emotions that they generate, if you allow them, those can become real. Then you project those onto somebody else, and now you've just taken a phony thought, a false narrative, and let it fester inside of you, hurt your physical health, and then project onto somebody else to screw up your social health. And that's kind of the cycle that keeps repeating if you don't learn how to break it. So that's something I've been digging deep into myself, to avoid that type of stuff, those irritable moments, that anger, and all of that, because it doesn't go anywhere. And again, if you go the other way and you don't even realize your emotions, or you're just too much at ease and content and just sitting there, that's going to be dangerous too, because if you live in too much contentment in a comfort zone, and then you sit in that for too long, you play it too safe, you don't do anything, you're just trying to always be happy, and then something catastrophic happens in your life, you become ultra fucked by it. Like you're going to be ragingly ultra fucked because you never dealt with any adversity and you just tried to stay happy and content and chill all the time. You probably didn't grow in any way. You're probably just, stuck in some pit of mediocrity. We've all been there, I think. I have. So too much contentment, like I said, they can lead to complacency and just wanting to just grasp that comfort zone. So balancing your emotions out and letting yourself feel those, like anger, let yourself feel sadness, let yourself feel this fear and irritability, and just sit in it and just say, all right, well, wow, all right, I'm feeling this right now. I don't have to react to it. You just sit in it and you just take it. Let it pass, because then you get stronger and you can handle it as it comes. And you can function as a human without going off the handle and freaking out like we're seeing a lot of now. I think mental health is, we're seeing mental health. They call it mental health, but I think it's because the mental thoughts drive the emotional destruction, which actually becomes a bodily issue, which actually affects physical health. So I think it's just a trickle effect. But I think we're starting to see, we're starting to see a lot more attention to that, which is good, and I think that's a two-way deal as well. I think our society as it is, as explained with the social media, our shitty diets, all that kind of stuff, I think plays into it, but at the same time, I think it's good that we're addressing it. So there's probably more of it, but at least it's being addressed, which is nice to see, and I think that's finally a necessary thing. And like going back to what I said about the boomers and kind of their hard-nosed work ethic, I think they have that work ethic, which is great, and they are tough, and that's fine. But I do believe that the boomers have never addressed, a lot of them, never addressed any of their traumas, any of their deepest emotional scars, and they just lived with it. They've masked it. They've covered it up. Maybe they used work even to hide from it, and just never once did they ever try to figure themselves out, dig the deep roots of that they were planted through their childhood, and then never addressed it, and then just become this curmudgeon human throughout their lives. That's not speaking for all. That's just some, because there are some very happy boomers out there. You know that. All right. So last thing here, I just found this. I wanted to kind of get something in one place that I, wanted to put myself there, but I didn't think I was qualified enough to do it. But I found this website called thedesigncoach.com, and it has this short little graphic and article about the 12 areas of life balance. And I thought it was pretty interesting. And what it does, it says 12 areas, but what it is 4, and there's 3 little sub-categories with it. So the way it's listed is the very first realm. It has 4 realms of focus, and each one has 3 little aspects in there. So the first realm of focus is your health. And obviously, it says your health is the ultimate wealth. It really is. And that goes for physical, emotional, and spiritual. And those are the 3 areas that they define here. So it's your physical health is number 1. Your emotional and spiritual health, I guess we'll put mental health in there as well. I guess that's what they're kind of putting together. And then 3 would be your financial health. You could kind of flip-flop 1 and 2. I've always, obviously I'm a physical health type guy, but without your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health suffers. You're not eating right. You're not sleeping well. You're not training in the gym and all that. So I can see those being 1 and 1A personally. And then of course, financial health, is a term described, someone's monetary relationship. Maybe it's, financial literacy. Basically, your health, your financial health is how well you can manage your money. It's a strength. It's something that when you get X amount of dollars, what do you do with that money? Work is one thing. That's great. That's why they say if you make a salary, $100,000, $200,000 a year, so, you make 6 figures, you must be a wealthy person. That doesn't mean that, because there's more aspects to it. Work makes the money. That's where that ends. You make it. They don't give a shit what you do with it from there. From there, you can either, you save it, and that's fine to save the money in a savings account, but that really doesn't grow. So if you don't have the mentality to know where to put it away, invest it for retirement, for fuck you money, and all that other stuff that you need later in life. So if you ever lose your job, you ever have a shitty boss that you want to tell to go drown in a lake, you can say that. You can get fuck you, and I got money for it. Let's go. That's a great insurance policy, by the way. I learned that. and I've mentioned it on the podcast before. Fuck you, money. Learned it from my father, and it's been something that I've been blessed to know that to have, and to say that I have X amount of dollars saved up, so I can get myself out of a situation and have X amount of months of income saved up, so that I can progress and find a new job and do my thing, which is nice. I'm actually currently in the process of doing that right now, finding another gig for myself, which is going to be awesome. So anyways, so financial health, very important. But again, without your physical, emotional, spiritual, mental health, nothing else really is going to matter here. So realm number 2, they list the focus is people, your people that surround you. Area number 4 is your home people. So that would be your immediate family, like we talked about before, your spouse, your kids, and whoever else is living with you, potentially maybe a sibling. Area 5 is your work people, your coworkers. And that's true because, you need to balance your time with your coworkers. You're going to see these people. That's where I was always like, I see you guys 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day. And now you want to go have drinks after work? No, I'm going to go home and see my family. I'm sorry. Maybe here and there you do, but like excessively, you got to balance it out. And you got to have good relationships with these people, because if you go to a place to work and there's animosity, resentment, spite, and just flat out hatred with people, you're going to have a very shitty inside. You're going to hate 8, 9 hours of your day. And that's one person can do that, especially if it's a direct report. Forget about it. You got to have good relationships on the job. And I've learned that. I've been exposed to some very, very questionable individuals who clearly have something wrong in their personal lives. They take that to work. They rain hell on you because they have no control in their personal lives. So they take it all out in a position of seniority on the superiors, inferiors, whatever you call them. I don't know. Anyways, don't get me started on that. And then it says number 6 is your wider community. By that, I'm guessing they're going to mean your extended family, your friends, your neighbors, people you interact with, and to have a good relationship there. So to move along on this thing here, and I guess the balance, the key here is balance. So what you need to do is balance those out. So for instance, like I said, the last one is homework and wider community. That might be, 80, 20, or 80, 15, 5 right there. You're not going to, that's just a time structure that you can spend with these people. You just got to give the right amount of time and quality time with people. That brings me back to the social media and staring at your phone. If you're with your home people 80% of the time, but 60, 70% of that time you're on your phone, you're not actually with your home people. You're actually with the wider community, who probably isn't anywhere near as important. I'm going to tell you that they're not. Area number 7 comes in at the third realm of focus, which is your environment. And that's your kind of similar, your home environment, your work environment, and they say your adventures. So home environment just being how you all interact at home. Are you having dinner together? You get home and everybody just retreats to their own room and plays on their device and doesn't talk to each other. We've had some moments where that's happened here, and it's doesn't make a lot of sense. And then again, it says your work environment. You want to be in a stable spot where you're happy, where you can thrive and do well, and actually maybe look a little forward to going, or at least not hate it. That would be ideal. And then 9 are your adventures. That would be your vacations, I'm guessing, your hobbies and other things that you do in your life that you get satisfaction from and fulfillment, to make those a priority as well. And that goes back to the work-life balance, is make time for that stuff. My grandfather, I told you about him earlier. He worked his ass off, that guy. He was always working. And, later on in life, he did tell my father, and my father told me to make sure, you do take some time to smell the roses, which was his wife's name. But anyways, moving along here to realm number 4, which is your growth. That would be learning, your career, and then rest, play, and creativity. So area 10 is learning, and that would just basically be progressing any which way in your life, learning new things, reading. Maybe it's learning new skills, trying to become more handy, something that benefits you as far as a human being, that gives you more value and more fulfillment and makes you just boost your self-worth. That's very important, because if you don't know how to do anything, as you get older, you're going to realize, oh shit, I never learned this. I was never a very handy person. I'm in the process of trying to become a more handy, reliable person right now, because I just never really made the time for it. I never needed to do anything like that. So I'm trying to become at least somewhat sufficient handy without killing myself. And, well, if I'm dead after this, I fucking tried electrical work and fucked it all up. But that's the end of me. So then career obviously comes in at number 11 there. And again, this is the third time, and each realm has work or family or something in it. So as you can see, this is kind of work-life balance in itself. So, your career is another one. You want to be able to progress there, much like learning a skill. And bonus, if your skill helps you in your career and in your personal life, and you can kind of hit both area 10 and 11 by learning something. And then number 12 is rest, play, and creativity. Again, that's very similar to what was up there before in, I believe, realm. I can't find it now. Yeah, in realm, your adventures, number 9, was very similar to that. So rest is important. You need sleep. You can't function and do any of this crap without sleep. I've talked about it before. It's as important as anything. It might be the most important thing that gets overlooked. We tend to brag about not sleeping, which is ridiculous in my opinion, because that's just our culture here in the United States. I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I'm working, no time to sleep, there's too much work to do, or any of that stuff. That'll catch up to you. That'll catch up to you physically and mentally. It'll fuck everything else up that we talked about in the other realms. That'll just kill you. Play, of course, that's always good. You got to have some time to let loose and relax and do something. Again, balance that. That's why they have learning and career within the same realm. And then creativity, doing something that you can do that feels creative. That's kind of what I do with this podcast. I just, I'm not a professional speaker of any kind. I just kind of come here and ramble, and whoever wants to listen, God bless you. I love you. And, that's just a place where I can be creative there. With social media posts, when I was on social media, that's another spot. And, like I said before, I'm redoing a room in my house. I'm redoing a large area in my basement that I'm being creative with, and I'm learning. So that kind of hits 10 and 12 here for me is taking on a project that I'm not very handy with. I'm going to do some things that are out of my comfort zone. Hey, will I fuck it up? Maybe, but that's sure as hell how I'm going to learn, and then I can become more creative from that. So those are some pretty cool aspects there from thedesigncoach.com. And that was a nice little concise way to find balance in 4 different quadrants there for your life. So I've gone pretty long here, but that's all right because I haven't done a podcast in a little bit. So anyways, there's a lot of other things. Balance is everything, and we all have our own ones. You can't really look to anybody else but yourself for this sort of balance because, you are you, and, you can get ideas, but somebody else's balance is not going to be your balance. If you're going to go to a single person who lives in a city somewhere and you're a suburbanite with a wife and 2 or 3 kids, your balance is not going to be the same as these people. Same goes for your hobbies and everything of the sort. So that's what I'm trying to do, trying to figure that out, balancing things as they change. And then, wild cards come in, wrenches get thrown into shit, and your balance gets all fucked. And then you just have to recalibrate and balance your shit. And that's where we're at. And that's where life is all about, figuring out how to get back on and rebalance everything, because not a lot of it's in your control. You can try to balance all you want, but shit's going to go down that throws that off. And sometimes you will be off balance, and you can feel that, and it's going to suck, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to fucking be very, very uncertain at times with things. So that's all right, though. That's life. That's what gets you stronger through the ways. Sometimes look at things as a new beginning, too, when they get fucked. You just look at things as a brand new beginning, say, like, all right, this ran its course. That's done. Let's go. Let's move forward. So buddy of mine, Sean Hennigan, let me take that kind of route when I would get a little down about something, whether it was career or just something, trying to do something with my nutrition or whatever it was. If something comes to an end, whether it's a friendship, whatever it is, you go with it. You say, that ran its course. That was its time. Now we move along. We do our thing, and we just get back up and rebalance. And then you just find a new balance. You got to keep doing it. And, as a dad, New Balance is a great shoe to cut the grass in. That's just which is what you got to do. If you're over 40 and you have kids, you must wear New Balances in order to cut the grass. You don't know what I'm talking about? Google that shit. Check out the memes. Look at them. Every dad with his jorts and his New Balances, that's what you got to do. That's just the way it is. You can't hide from the dad bod and the dad clothes and such. Now, anyways, I'm just rambling at this point. Thanks for listening. If you need to get a hold of me, a little different these days is Instagram. I do check periodically. That's at MFS Wellness. LinkedIn at MFS Wellness. Mike at MFSWellness.com. So those are the best ways to get a hold of me. If you need nutrition plans, workout programming, just want to shoot the shit a little bit and talk about your goals, see if I can help you out. Got my rates out there, and I can send you those. So until we come back with yet another podcast, thanks to all who listen, and have a fantastic day.